Hello everybody, I had that on loop, I don't know why. Anyway, hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Songwriting Simplified with me, Jonny Lipsham, here at jonnylipshamstudios.co.uk in Scotland, capital of the UK, capital of Europe, capital of the world, capital of the solar system, capital of the galaxy, capital of the Milky Way, capital of most of the universe. I don't know why. I need to kind of stop doing that, I think. It was kind of funny maybe the first few times, but now it's probably just a bit excessive. Anyway, I hope everybody is doing well and has had a good start to your week. I've had a actually pretty good start to the week. Busy couple of days. Yeah, a lot of things going down at the moment. But yeah, busy couple of days to start the week, but satisfying. Good days. I'm happy. Just to give you, I know I don't really talk personal stuff on my show, and that is deliberate. That is by design. I don't like to talk about my personal circumstances because my channel is not really about that. My shows are not really about that. The videos I make are not really about my personal circumstances. They are designed to serve you and, you know, help you to learn more about music making and certainly more about Studio One. But I am going to give you a little bit of a health update. This morning I had an appointment at hospital to have a Doppler test. And basically what that is it's like a blood pressure test. You know, you put the blood pressure cuff on and you take your readings and it tells you what your blood pressure is. Well, in this case, the Doppler test is a little bit different. They use the same kind of cuffs, except they're on both arms and both legs. And they basically inflate and deflate at different times. The idea being is that what it does is it takes a measurement of the pulse of your blood, basically pulsing through your arms and your legs and into your extremities. And the results are instant, by the way. The test takes about 3 minutes and you get the results immediately. So the news is good, but also kind of not so good at the same time. Let's start with the good part. The good part is that actually the results are not bad. They are not bad at all. They could have been much worse, and I was actually prepared for much worse. But they're not. Basically, if there's kind of like a green, amber, and red kind of scale, for green is perfectly normal, yellow is kind of, or amber's kind of, this is concerning and needs to be treated immediately, and then red is kind of like, this is very, very serious, you need to be referred to a vascular surgeon immediately, because it's dangerous. Well, I'm kind of just literally on the line between okay and concerning. Basically, I'm right on that line between green and amber for my results. So what does that mean in practice? What that means in practice is there is no cure for what I have, which is venous insufficiency. Basically, what venous insufficiency is it's basically the blood flow to my left leg in particular. It doesn't return. So the blood goes down, but it doesn't return properly. And so it ends up just pooling in my leg, and then it just kind of collects and it's swollen my leg up and all of that. The flow isn't actually as bad as I thought it might be, but it's not good. So there's no cure for it. All that can be done is treat it and help prevent it from getting worse. So what I have to do is I have to wear a compression stocking on my left leg during the day, every day for the rest of my life. And I will also have to take some medication to help with the blood flow for the rest of my life. But so far, that's kind of it. And I will be subject to a Doppler test every 6 months for the rest of my life. because it will need reviewed every 6 months to make sure, treatment is doing its thing and it's not getting any worse. So that's kind of the health situation. So I don't have to have surgery. That's a plus point. And I'm not in any kind of imminent health danger whatsoever. So that is also a plus point. So I kind of left the hospital kind of going, meh, this is not as bad as I thought it could be. But, I have an ongoing health condition that isn't going to get better. It's going to be managed for the rest of my life. And so kind of, I suppose even Stevens is kind of where I was with that. So that's to update you guys so that you know I'm actually okay. I'm actually fine. I know I have missed a few shows this year. I've missed a few Songwriting Simplifieds, and I've missed a few Sunday Night Lives because of my health. Because first of all, I had the cellulitis. That is all gone, which is good. But it takes about 9 months for your body to make a complete full recovery from the cellulitis. And so I'm probably only about 2 months in from actually clearing the infection altogether. So my recovery from it, there's quite a long way to go. A lot of it for me is about energy. I sometimes don't have a whole lot of energy because, my body is just not ready for the big time like it normally is. So please bear with me. I thank you very much, everybody, for your patience over the last several months. You guys have been wonderful. Thank you for your very kind messages on Facebook and on comments on shows and comments on the community posts I put up. You guys have been very, very, very kind and very thoughtful, and I appreciate it a lot. A big thank you actually has to go to Christina, who is here tonight. She has been a great help. She came and visited, and I had her on a show, which was great. It was great to have her here. But she is actually a qualified and trained professional nurse. And so she really knows what she's doing. And so we were able to kind of have good, lengthy conversations about it and talk kind of strategies and that kind of thing. And she was great. She brought some strapping for my leg in the meantime whilst we're waiting for the Doppler test and all of that. So she has been absolutely outstanding, and I owe her a big thanks. So Christina, if you're watching, huge thank you to you, and thank you for coming to visit. It was wonderful having you here. All right, so with all of that out the way, because that took about 10 minutes, which is longer than I wanted it to take. Let's actually go and see who's here. So Billy Morgan was first in the door. He was very, very early. That's almost record-breakingly early. Christina was next in, followed by Ron Figura, followed by Kyle Trajuzia and John Hawk and Harley Bob. Harley Bob, good to see you. And Daryl Harrison, good to see you too, buddy. And Don Oliver is here as well. And Mike Johnson is here. Gardner99 is also here. Keith from Radio Tuck Frumpy is also here. Tony Cardona. I always get those letters mixed up. I say it the wrong way around every time. He says, I have to poke myself with a needle in my stomach for the rest of my life. Well, you and I are buddies in that case. And I'm glad I don't have to stick myself with a needle because I hate needles with a passion. And I'm sorry that you have to go through that. And Just Bob is here. Brett Marler is here as well. And he says, your health is more important than YouTube streams. It is. That's absolutely true. But I love doing these shows. And I love talking to you guys. And I love interacting with you guys. So, this is important to me as well. Doing this is important to my mental health as much as anything else. All right, so let's make a start, shall we? Because I have something very cool to show you. And I'm going to demonstrate it in one particular way, but you can apply this to pretty much anything, to pretty much any piece of music that you either compose or you arrange or anything like that. And it's a very simple little device. You can apply this to anything, especially if you're a keyboard player, or maybe you're not necessarily a very good keyboard player, but you want to be able to create something inventive with something very, very simple. So that is the topic for tonight's show. And then we will get into your songwriting, arranging, composing, music theory questions. So let's get to it. We're going to do this in the key of E flat, which I know for you guitar players is a bit of a pain in the arse, but bear with me because this can be done in any key. It will also work for minor keys as well, but there are a few caveats which we can maybe get into if we have a wee bit of time. All right, so let's get into this. So we're going to start in E flat major. And here's what you're going to do. In one hand, your right hand, you're going to play two chords. You're going to play chord 1 to chord 5. That's all you're going to do. It's what happens with the left hand that makes the magic. All right, so this bit is a little bit boring. In fact, you can play the Skype call tune with this. It works. That's the Skype melody. What we're going to do is we're going to dress this up with some really interesting bass notes that are going to make this have a little bit of magic, but also it's a little bit of a throwback to a very famous Baroque piece of music. But it's not that piece. It might sound like it, but it is not that piece. So YouTube copyright people, it's not that piece. So don't you hit me. All right, so there's a lot of things you could do with this. Let's move the mic over a wee bit. There's a lot of things you could do with this. You could basically just walk down a major scale. You could absolutely do that. And that would kind of be a little bit like Bach's Air on a G string. Totally, you could do that. That's not what I was thinking of, but that is definitely one option, and it does make this that kind of a little bit more interesting. Whoever came up with this little 3-note figure is a freaking genius, by the way. But that's not what we're going to do. What we're going to do is we're going to play this. We're going to go in the bass hand, we're going to go that's it. I had a small brain fart there. And instantly people are thinking Pachelbel's canon. You would be correct. But this is not that piece. Now, let's put the left and the right hands together. Now, do you see how cool that is? It sounds a little bit like Pachelbel's canon, but there are some distinct differences. Let's work out what the bass hand is doing to the chords. So, we start off conventionally. E flat to B flat. Then we get C minor 7. Then we get G minor 7. And then we get A flat major 9. Then we get E flat major 9. And then that A flat major 9 again, and then we get B flat. And you can put the 7 in there if you want. dress this up however you like. You can make this as interesting as you like. You can make these little arpeggios. You know, if you really want to do that. I'm playing this all wrong. So you can, I kind of fudged that, but you get the idea. You can keep that going all day long if you really want. And then you can start to play with different inversions. Like you could do it this way. If you want that kind of to be a little bit richer sounding, just, you know, make this a first inversion instead of what I was doing. I was doing root position, going to first inversion of the B flat. But you can do it this way. You know, and you can kind of make the rhythm as interesting in this hand as you want to. You don't have to do it dead straight. Or if you want to kind of go somewhere in the middle, kind of not quite that dark, but, you know, you can do this instead. So you can kind of stretch that out and make that as interesting as you want. But you can apply this idea to a whole range of different concepts. I mean, I'm just doing 1-5, 1-5, 1-5 in my right hand. My left hand is doing different bass notes. That's the principle I'm trying to get across here, is if you have a set of chords in one hand, then you can change the bass notes. So this doesn't necessarily have to just apply to a keyboard instrument. You can do this with a guitar and a bass. Have the guitar player just playing a couple of simple chords with a nice little funky pattern, and then your bass player can play different bass notes, and you can turn, you know, something really quite mundane as chord 1 to chord 5 and make it really interesting and really funky. You know, especially when you get to those, you know, those major nines where you've got that sound and that sound. Those are really great sounding chords. And so, you know, you can Alright, so I hope that gives you food for thought about different things that you can try. Not necessarily those chords. You could take different chords. Maybe you could do C to F. Which kind of doesn't really work until you get to the end, but different bass notes will make those chords sound better. You couldn't necessarily do a C major scale there. So that's a different approach, just using chord 1 to chord 4. That's all I'm doing, and then I'm changing the bass notes down here. Now, the first time I did it, you realized that doesn't sound very nice. F over B, meh. Way too spicy. Use this one sparingly. You can use it, but use it sparingly. So, instead, let's go stepwise with the bass. So, C to effectively B flat major 9, A minor, G11, because we've got that F over G kind of thing, F major 9, and then we've got F over E flat, so it's like an F7 chord with the E flat in the bass, D11 to G11. So it's the same idea, we're just putting some different bass notes to make two chords in the right hand do something different. So if you've got a guitar player who likes playing nice, funky, tight little guitar patterns and just using two chords, then your bass player can change these bass notes and you'll get some really interesting sounds. There are some that will sound more spicy than others. So, you know, if we keep this C to F thing going on, let's see what we can come up with. How about this? There, that's kind of a little bit spicy. C over A flat. That gives you like a A flat major flat 5 kind of. That makes that into a D minor chord, and then we can kind of stay there, which kind of weakens the whole progression. So maybe. But then that brings you back home, which is a little premature. We don't want to do that. So now this is really spicy. F with the G flat in the bass. So again, sparing use. Or how about that? F with the D flat in the bass. That could kind of work. And then something like that. Or you could ascend instead of going down with the bass line. Let's try that, using the same C to F with this hand. No. So we can actually ascend the C major scale. And you get this nice little amen cadence to finish with. So that kind of also works, but it's not very interesting. So let's try something different. What have we got there? F over E flat, so that F7 thing again. So there are endless possibilities, and really the only thing that hinders you is how much spice you like in your harmony. Just by keeping one triad or two triads and changing the bass notes. And you'll find that you can create some really unusual chords that you never thought were possible just by having a triad in one hand, a 3-note chord, and a different bass note. And you might find, hey, there are a few that I really like. Like, I quite like this one. This C over A flat. So I like to move this about. You know? And then this D is going to have to go up to an E. So I like that sound, and I like to move that about quite a bit. And again, this kind of 11 kind of sound, you know. It's actually a really nice sound. So you might find that this is another sound that you like, or you know the 7th chord with the 7th in the bass. That's another nice thing, and again, you can move this one around as well. And kind of do different things with it, maybe. Maybe if we went... Maybe put the 5 in there as well. So we've got this 5th string going on. Again, I've changed the triad this time, so now I've got A flat, B flat. So it kind of depends upon how spicy you want to get your chords to sound. But the cool thing is you can make really interesting harmony just by taking a 3-note triad like a root position C major triad and putting a different bass note underneath it and see what you like. And so you'll find that there are... am I clipping again? I might be clipping on my piano a little bit. Sorry about that. It always defaults to being too loud. Sorry about that. Yeah, still doing it. Roll it back a little bit more. There we go. That should be better. But yeah, you get the point. And the point being that you can apply a triad plus a different bass note, and you can find that you get some really interesting chords that are a little bit spicy, a little bit advanced sounding, and certainly very kind of modern sounding, that will add some extra spice, extra flavor, extra color to your songs. And of course, if you're a guitar player and you know, if I was to say, hey, play me an A flat major 9 flat 5, you'd go, I have no idea how to do that. Then I would say, that's okay, just play me a C major chord. And I'll put the A flat in the bass. And that's exactly what we've got. So this is good for intermediate or beginner guitar players because they don't have to play complicated chords. The rest is done with the bass. So the bass player can play there. This is where the bass player really becomes incredibly essential and powerful to the harmonic language of your song. So you can have very simple chords on a keyboard instrument, very simple chords on a guitar, and it's the bass note that makes the difference between a simple sounding chord to something that sounds a little bit more spicy and a little bit more funky, and a little bit more modern sounding. So I hope that this is an idea that appeals to you regardless of the style of music you're working in, because certainly this kind of harmony you will find in, you know, contemporary orchestral music, like the orchestral music of John Williams and other great composers. Leonard Bernstein made use of some of this kind of harmony. You'll find this in a lot of, you know, late 20th century and also 21st century film composers make use of these kind of ideas. So give those a try and see what you think. Let's go and take a look at what we have here. Let's see. Billy's asking if there's anything interesting in 621. Go check out the release notes. Release notes are available from like if you update to Studio One 621, then if you go to, I think it's help. Let me just check that for you. Yeah, help and view release notes. Why don't we do that just now, actually, just for the fun of it. So let's go help, view release notes. And then what it does is it downloads your release notes and it opens them up as a PDF. Now, that is ludicrously small. That's fine. We're going to blow it up. So you'll see version 6.2.1 release notes. August 1st. This is only 2 days ago. So, listen bus metronome is enabled by default. That was broken in 6.2. Delete key won't remove selected tracks. Use hotkey instead. Shift T. So basically, there was this thing in Studio One 6.2 where if you press the delete key, it would delete a track. And didn't kind of work. It wasn't really very workable feature. So it is now reverted. So it behaves like it has always done, really. And then these issues have been fixed. Crash when opening pop-up menu for scenes. Crash on launch after changing license. So this is, for example, if you switch between Studio One Professional and Studio One Artist, or activate Studio One activated with Studio One Plus. On Mac, it can crash. Preview player is not routed through main out insert effects. I think that refers to the video player. Capture files from Capture do not locate files correctly after renaming, and this ends up with missing files. Drum editor audition notes might play wrong pitches, and it did play wrong pitches in certain circumstances. So if you're putting in a snare drum hit, it might play as a completely different sound altogether, like a cowbell, which is what I saw happen. Windows Control and A does not select all text. This was very true. So if you wanted to change a bunch of instrument track names by selecting all of those channels using Control A, or a bunch of events that you wanted to change the name of, it didn't do that. But now it does. In the project page, track meters are black, and they were, especially on Mac. This is where we found the issue. We found the issue on Mac. First of all, it was in the song page, and then it made its way over to the project page on Windows. Fixed. They're now the correct color. Potential crash when moving bend markers. I personally saw this one. And it's not a potential crash, it did actually crash. So if you selected an event and then you started putting in bend markers, poof, gone. That is now fixed. Certain note events are too dark on a light background. We have now fixed that. So if you go into the note editor, now those notes would not be quite so dark. And that's it. It's only a small little maintenance update. That's all it is. So a couple of improvements, and then some issues that were pretty serious have now been fixed. And that pretty much is it. So I hope that helps. Oops. Somehow I managed to blow that up on the wrong screen. So that's that. Guitar. Brett says guitarists just need to tune down a half step. Maybe. I wouldn't recommend that, but because it can become confusing. Yes, you can. Or you can use a capo, potato, however you want to say it. Capos are always good. Rich Cresswell is here, which is awesome. And I think I missed you out when I was kind of going through the top of the show. And Mike said you could walk down a bass line. Absolutely you can. Mike Rall is here as well. Awesome. And Secret Squirrel is here as well. Fantastic. Yes, Canon in D. Yes, it did kind of sound a little bit like Pachelbel's Canon in D. But yeah. Let's see. Brett Marler says my latest work utilizes this concept in the interlude. Cool. Ron Figura says first 6 bass notes are melodic fourths separated by a whole step and a major third, and the 4th and 5th makes it easier to remember the left hand. If that helps you to remember, Ron, then definitely use that method. And then he corrects. He says, sorry, minor second between the 2nd and 3rd set of chords. Okay. Tony says, reminds me of how so many rock songs use this as a bridge or to segue to a new direction in their songs. Yeah, there's a bunch of songs that do this. You'll find Stevie Wonder uses these kind of devices, and you'll find Sting uses those kind of harmonic devices as well. You will definitely find them in the Eagles. You will find them in Steely Dan. You'll find them in all of those kind of bands from the 80s, in particular, 70s and 80s. It was really kind of a 70s harmonic device that just became popular. But really, it goes all the way back to late 19th century, early 20th century European classical orchestral composers. That's where these harmonic devices come from. And they've been appropriated in jazz music and in pop and rock music as well. But they are really, really great ideas, because you can end up with really complex chords very, very simply. That's kind of the way I like to see it. Mike says, I like the F chord over B. Yeah. Now, with this one, maybe it's the inversion that you need to make sure you get. That the distance between the C and the B maybe needs to be a little bit wider. So you could do it like this. Maybe that works a bit better. Let's see. Bobby says, hello, having trouble with the chat not showing up. Well, we can see what you're saying, Bobby. Absolutely. Tony says, adding diminished chords would make it so very interesting and profound. Harrison was an advocate of the key change and king of diminished chords. Yeah, George Harrison certainly did that. Diminished chords are very cool, but this kind of technique using diminished chords is a little bit trickier. And because a diminished chord basically is a stack of minor thirds, the potential for spiciness when you start playing around with different bass notes is very, very high indeed. And some of it will work, and some of it will work less. And some of it will work for some genres, and some of it just won't work for another. So you may not get this kind of, this C sharp diminished with, if I put an A under this, I get a C sharp. It's A7 flat 9, basically. So you get this in like a 5-1 in D minor. Turn myself up just a little so I can hear it a little bit better. So that would be, there's a C sharp diminished 7. So there's one application of a diminished chord with a different bass note making a complex dominant altered dominant 7 chord. But let's see what else we can come up with. Yeah, that doesn't sound so good. That's just wrong. Well, it's not wrong, but it just sounds very weird. Now this kind of works, and the reason why this one kind of works with the E flat instead of the C sharp is because now I've turned this into an E flat 7 flat 9. which is a tritonal substitution for the A7 flat 9. And that also works beautifully. So that works quite nicely. So that's definitely a good little suggestion there. Mike Rowell says, I got 621 today, but I haven't had a chance to play with it much yet. Yeah, it's very lightweight. It's basically, you're not on the surface of it going to notice a whole bunch. Other than those issues that if you ever saw them, they are now fixed. But that's it, really. To be honest. And that's it. We've got to the end of the chat. We're not at the end of the show yet, but we've definitely got to the end of the chat. So definitely try it, as Tony recommends, with different chord types. So they don't have to be major triads, but certainly you make some interesting sounds with major triads. You know, when you put them on with a different bass note underneath, like this F major with the D makes a D minor 7, but it also makes a B flat major 9, which is nice. There's a little 2-chord vamp as an intro to your song without moving the chord at all, which means your guitar player can just strum away on a D minor chord or on a little F major triad kind of second inversion. And then you can kind of do this. There you've got, I've managed to get in that E flat 7 flat 9 there, that has the diminished chord in it essentially. So there's a couple of useful options there. Anybody got any further questions whilst I drum on my mixer? But yeah, there's some good suggestions there. Mike Rouse, Ron Figura says, yes, the F over B is like a flat 5, flat 9. It kind of is. So if I take that F chord, we're assuming that the B is the root. So we've got the flat 9 there. And we've got the flat 5 there, but we don't have a third. So if I made this into an F7, now we have the third and the seventh. These are the essential ingredients for a chord. But then if we put in the rest of the F major chord, the C and the F, now we've got ourselves a very nice chord. We've got ourselves B7 flat 9 flat 5, which is going to resolve nicely into an E minor chord. If I play the right bass note. Or where I forgot that flat 9. So yeah, that kind of does work. I like that. I like that suggestion. That is good. Good stuff. Gardner99 says Professor Longhair spiced of his chords with the bass. Who are you referring to when you say Professor Longhair? I'm not quite sure who that is referring to. Not really sure. Are you talking about Jean-Michel Jarre? Maybe, yeah, maybe he does do that. But I'm not really very sure. Somebody says... you guys are talking about an Error 503. Okay, well, it's interesting. You guys, Bobby and Tony, you're both saying that you're having trouble with the chat showing up and you're getting an Error 503, but we can see your posts. We can see your posts in the chat, so I can absolutely see exactly what you're saying. So yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there. If you are receiving any kind of like error message like that, just drop out of the show and come back in, and hopefully the chat will show up again. And just make sure that you've got it set to live chat, not the top chat. Top chat doesn't necessarily show everything. Henry Roland Roy Bird, better known as Professor Longhair or Fess for short, was an American singer and pianist who performed New Orleans blues. Okay, this is certainly somebody I did not know about. So thanks for that, Rich. This goes to show I am definitely a little rusty on my New Orleans blues piano players. Because I really like New Orleans blues. Probably as much as I like St. Louis blues and Chicago blues. Chicago blues is definitely very different to, you know, that New Orleans southern blues, which has definitely a kind of more modal kind of feel to it. It's definitely a little bit darker, whereas Chicago blues is not quite so dark, and Chicago blues is a little bit more backbeat orientated with a little bit more forward motion to it compared to New Orleans music. But yeah, I love that. Roy says, can you play 6-2-1 progression as a tribute to the little S1 update? Now that's an interesting idea. 6-2-1. Not sure that it works, but it might. So chord 6 in C major. My chair is very, very squeaky, sorry. So we'll go kind of a little bit on the weak side, isn't it? You know, you really want to do 6, 2, 5, 1, really. So if we were doing 6, 2, 5, 1, 6.2.5.1, which I don't think is ever been a build of Studio One ever. I don't think they've ever done like 4 dots in a build before. That's not to say that they couldn't, but there, that's just something I just made up for literally no reason whatsoever. Oh, my chair is disgraceful. There we go. Mike says, I grew up in Mississippi, so I grew up on Delta Blues. I love Delta Blues. I really do. I love the darkness, the swampiness of the music. Love it. It's so full of color and passion. It's great. I love it. It has a really unique feel to it that you don't get with blues anywhere else in the United States. It's so distinctive that, you know, if you hear, you know, LA blues, like a West Coast kind of blues, and then you listen to, you know, blues from New York or blues from Chicago on the East Coast, they are quite unique, quite distinctive. You can tell, hey, this is definitely a West Coast tune. This is definitely an East Coast tune. And then you've got, you know, New Orleans and St. Louis and all that Mississippi Delta kind of blues music, which is just totally distinctive and is nothing like either coast, really. it has its own unique kind of feel and vibe to it, and I love it. So there is the PA S1 meetup, which is later on tonight. Just Bob says Chicago Blues was born from Delta Blues. It most certainly was. Yeah. As things improved, not dramatically, the music created reflected those times, feelings, and mood. Yeah. And I like the fact that Chicago Blues has much, has a bit more kind of a sense of urgency and forward motion to the music than Delta Blues does. That's not to say that Delta Blues doesn't have any motion to it. It does. It does have some forward motion, does have some backbeat to it, but the Chicago Blues, which is kind of essentially where rock and roll was born, really. Rock and roll was essentially born with a blend of Chicago and New York blues with a little smattering of jazz. It kind of grew up around that, and that's how you ended up with rock and roll. And then there's, all sorts of other blues elements that are wrapped up in it. But yeah, it's that Chicago backbeat that gives rock and roll its drive and its forward motion. Roy says, yeah, 621, maybe a little weak, but kind of liked it. Yeah, the problem with it is that you have... it's not the most satisfying cadence. Kind of works, but not really. It might if we change the bass note. That would work better. Yeah. That definitely works. Or... but there again, I'm changing the bass note now, so now it's 4-5-1. Which, by the way, we did have. We had 4.5.1 was a build of Studio One 4. And I never thought of that. Maybe I should have thought of that, because that would work. Again, I'm using this. I'm just using this 1, 4, 1, a different inversion of chord 1 at the end. Change the bass note. You get a much more interesting sound, chord 4 to 5. Chord 1, chord 4, well, kind of chord 4. This is basically chord 1, chord 4, 6, because it's got a 6 in it. So yeah, 4.5.1 was a build of Studio One. Sounds like Three Blind Mice. Sounds like Three Blind Mice if they went into a blues club or a jazz bar. Absolutely, where would it go next? That would work. go back to. Oh yes, Three Blind Mice in a jazz bar. There you go. That was fun, and that kind of ate a little bit of time out of the show as well. All right, Tony says everything is working now. Good. Yep, coming back out and going back in. There we go. So the PA meeting is on in a wee while. I don't think it's on yet. Is that on at 2 a.m. again, or is it 1 a.m.? For me, that is. Is it 8 p.m.? Is that 8 p.m. Central that starts? I'm not sure. I'll go take a look. It's fine. Ron says, use various software versions for chord changes, ideas. Just skip the build. Yep. You could make a string of your favorite builds of Studio One and see what chords they come up with. Why not? Why not indeed? Absolutely. Seems like a good idea. All right. Seeing as there is 2 a.m. UK. Thank you, Rich. So that's in an hour's time. I may or may not be there. I have had a very long day because I was at the hospital very early this morning for my Doppler. So, but anyway, I'm glad that is now all out the way, and I know what is happening, and I know what my treatment is going to be. I just have to kind of, build a new workflow for my life. Everyone talks about workflow, so I'm applying this to my life. I now have to adapt a wee bit, and it's not a major drama to adapt to it at all. So anyway, thank you very much for all of your great questions and your great suggestions. And we did get a kind of slightly funky, slightly jazzy Three Blind Mice. Again, just by using the whole principle that we started the show out of. Simple triads, simple 3-note chords in the left hand, in the right hand, sorry, and different bass notes in the right. And this is how you result with something like what we had for Three Blind Mice right there. A little bit funkier. We'll finish with this last question. Gardner99 says, do you have this book, The Craft and Business of Songwriting? I don't actually, but I do have some other songwriting books that are not actually in my studio. They're in the garage. Pretty much most of my library is still in the garage. It hasn't been unpacked yet. We've been in the house for 2 years. I have unpacked maybe about 2% of my library because at the moment that's all that will fit in the house. I'm going to have to downsize my library. And when I say library, I'm not being grandiose. I really do have that many books. I have books on military history because I'm an amateur military historian. I have books on meteorology because I'm fascinated by meteorology. I have books on, obviously, on music and composing and arranging and music history because I am a qualified music historian and musicologist. So I have lots of books that are thick and maybe are a little bit dry and maybe a little bit quote unquote boring, but really, really important stuff like how the lute developed into the acoustic guitar, things like that, and how music for lute transitioned to what we have for music for classical guitar, like the music of the other John Williams and Segovia and people like that. So I have lots and lots of books on that kind of thing. So yeah. All right, there we go, folks. We are done and dusted for yet another show. Thanks, everybody, for coming. And I will see you on Sunday for Sunday Night Live, where we will explore some more of Studio One 6.2.1. And it's going to be a doozy. So I will see you there. I may or may not be at the PA meetup. We'll have to see how awake I am in the next 30 minutes. If I'm asleep in the next 30 minutes, I will not be there. But thank you, everybody. And I'll see you very soon. Good night, everybody. Oh, and just to say, folks, if you would like to come over and join me on my Discord server for a wee bit, I'll have that open at least for a little while. I will see if I can grab the link to it. Hang on just one moment. And I will post it in chat. I've actually forgotten how to do this. Isn't that just typical? How do I grab the link to this thing? I can't remember. I thought this would be a wonderful idea. No, that's not what I want to do. Somebody help me here. I can't remember how to share the link to the damn thing. Oh, there we go. Create invite. Got it. There we go. I'm posting that in the chat as well. There we go. Discord server is now open, folks. So if you want to come join me over here until the meetup, then we can do. All right. Good night.